Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the Belmont Saga Part 1, Chapter 7, Lieutenant Gwendolyn. So last week, our heroes made their way through the dark and somewhat creepy seeker trying to get to the bridge. It's dark and cold, the air is stale, all the hatches from where they are in the rear section of the ship, and the seeker is shaped kind of like a swan with the body with the wings, and then a long neck, and then the head. The bridge is in the head part, so they gotta go out of the main, or the back part of the ship, through the long neck, and then into the head, and then get to the bridge. It's a long way, it's a long walk. And all the hatches have been sealed in between, and they're trying to pry them open with a pole. And it's rough sledding. It's no day at the beach, that's a fact. And they're being regaled with all kinds of strange and preternatural noises and feelings and glimpses in the dark. Aram is certain he saw someone standing there in the dark, and there shouldn't be anyone on the ship except the three of them, but he's certain, and given his imagination and his fear of that crazy serial killer known as the Fiend of Calvert, he's like, this Fiend of Calvert is on the ship with us. And Stenstrom's like, don't be a total rube, Aram, there's nobody here. And then Stenstrom starts hearing funky noises. This crazy snap sound like a pair of scissors opening and closing. That's a very familiar sound to him. That's the sound direct from his old dream that he experiences frequently throughout his life. The sandbox dream, y'all remember that one, I would hope. And then they find, laying on the floor, a letter, an envelope. And Aram looks at it, he says, this letter is addressed to me. And then Stenstrom sees it. No, this letter is addressed to me. And I'm sure if Tara looked at it, she would think it was addressed to her. And he puts it away, makes it vanish. He's like, we gotta focus. Maybe we're all hallucinating a little bit from our airless upload to the seeker, and the air is probably not the greatest. We're gonna have to check on life support. Does anyone know anything about these stray light ships? And they're both like, no. A little, but no. And then Aram fesses up and says, well, I've got this thing that I wear called the Molly, and it's the Los Capricos weapon of my household. And every household in the league has a special item or weapon that is specific to their house. Remember the house of Blanchford, Captain Davidge's house, he has his car, gets his Los Capricos weapon. And then Paymaster Stenstrom has two of them. Coming from his father's Belmont stock are his Imp pistols, and then coming from his mother's stock are his Marzible daggers, which is a kind of dagger that mystically can replicate itself. So as long as he has the original hidden on his person, he can conjure up an endless number of Marzibles and throw them with great accuracy. Don't ask me how it works, just deal, okay? Chill out. But Aram says, so this Molly that I've got, when you put it on, it can assist you in doing things you shouldn't be able to do and knowing things you shouldn't know. Might come in handy in this situation where we have no technical skill on this ship, and maybe it'll give us some technical skill. And then Stenstrom's like, well, that sounds too good to be true. Let's do it. And Aram says, well, there's some things we have to know first before you use the Molly. One, you can't just use it. You got to register it with the Sisterhood of Light. They're sticklers for that. Doesn't matter what you're doing with it, you got to ask them for their approval first. I once won a pie eating contest. I'm a little skinny guy, but I used the Molly to put down some pie. But first, I filled out my little form, sent it off to the sisters, and waited for their approval, which they gave, and then I did it. And another thing, and even more troubling, if you use the Molly too much, a frickin' demon is gonna come for your soul and attempt to tear it into shreds. And Aram is very hesitant. One, because he doesn't want to annoy the sisters by not registering, and two, he doesn't want his soul ripped into small bits. And Tara is like, well, I'm not afraid. Give me that stupid thing. I'll wear it. And Stenstrom says, well, we're in luck, because if a demon comes, I can just shoot it dead with my nth pistols here. My nth pistols can kill anything. It can kill real people, it can kill imaginary people, intangible people like the Vision. It can kill ghosts, it can kill vampires, it can kill various kinds of monsters, no matter how huge and powerful. It can kill machines, it can kill robots, it can kill anything with one shot, including demons. And then he says, well, I've killed a lot of demons with these pistols. They work. You don't want to get shot with one of these. And then, if you're a discerning reader, you might be sitting, but Ren, you unmonetized hack artist, you. What a crazy set of coincidences. We're on a ship, and none of us know a whole lot about it, but look, Aram has this mystical thing called the Molly that can make you know things you shouldn't know and do things you shouldn't be able to do, and that might just be a snap in this situation. But then a demon might come for your soul. But look, Paymaster Stenstrom has these magical pistols that can kill demons with one shot. It all seems kind of coincidental, you know? Well, consider this. Are these set of coincidences? And remember, there's even more coincidences. Stenstrom needs a pilot. Aram's a pilot. They need some air. And Tara has these little aquanauts that they can use to breathe air on their way up into the ship. The coincidences just go on and on. So you have to ask yourself a question. Are these situations coincidences, or are they something else? Are they inevitabilities? Like we're at the end of a closed loop, of a grand circle, and it is inevitable that these people would come together, and it's inevitable that they would have ways to overcome certain situations to get to the final analysis, which we have yet to get to. I'm just saying, you know. Anyways, they make it to the bridge, and Stenstrom sees that it's trapped with aspects of the astral plane, which is no good, which is no bueno. You don't want the astral plane mucking things up. And he has another coincidence. He just happens to have these blue holy stones that can shut out the astral plane. So he distributes them about the bridge and gets rid of the pesky astral plane. They get in there, and that's where we left off. They got out of the wingtip roll. Tara put on the Molly, and sure enough, now Tara is a pretty competent shipboard engineer. She figures out how to shunt power from the gravity pack, which is solar powered, into the wingtip thrusters. When they get to the bridge, all Aram has to do is give the wheel a yank, and the roll is arrested. It's done. So that's done. Now they just gotta up thrust, gain some altitude, and get out of the list that they're in that's about to enter them into the atmosphere. But there's this crazy reclamation team that's en route to fix the Seeker's problems. And should they board? Should they set foot on the Seeker? Should they put a foot aboard? That's it. Paymaster Stenstrom, his appointment will be null and void. So it's imperative that they not enter the ship. It's imperative that the Seeker not be there when they arrive. That's kind of hard since the Seeker doesn't have any means of propulsion at the moment. So let's see how the situation develops. Chapter 7, Lieutenant Gwendolyn. Let's read on, shall we? Enough of my bullshit. Let's continue with the story. The Seeker was now in a high Zone D parking orbit, safely pulled away from the slow rolling dive it had found itself in. The demon that was supposedly coming for Tara's soul still hadn't shown, and Stenstrom wished for it to come so they could get its killing over with. Since arresting the decaying orbit, they had managed to get a little power to the bridge, by denying gravitational service to some of the rear areas of the ship. They now had dim lights, partial forward and ventral sensing, and port and starboard roll capabilities. They also had a feeble stream of stale air pushing in at a 1/24th life support from a ventilator. They also got the backup comm system running, and it wasn't long before a message came chattering in. Appearing dimly in the flickering holocone was a stern-looking woman dressed in a Ladies' Fleet Tremblar uniform. From what Stenstrom could see, she was a rugged woman with dark brown hair tightly pulled back under her smallish hat. She had a strong chin and a big forehead with either gray or green eyes, very attractive in a husky, solid sort of way. Behind her, crewmen bustled about. She stood with polished grace and had a long rapier-like weapon hanging at her side. She spoke, her voice slightly garbled from the low power of the comm. "Are you Paymaster Stenstrom, Lord of Belmont?" Stenstrom, unlike the famous Captain Davidge, who rarely sat in the captain's chair, liked the chair, so he dramatically sat down in a flutter of his HRN coat and cleared his throat. "I am. Belmont, South Tyrol, to be precise. Well met. And you are?" "Lieutenant Gwendolyn, Lady Apprentice, commanding officer of the scouting ship Demophalon John. What is your situation, sir? Fleetcom is very worried about you." Stenstrom looked around and leaned forward. "Are they?" "Half scuttled, that's our situation, as well they should know." "What is the status of your life support, please?" Stenstrom took a deep breath. "A little stale, but not bad." Lieutenant Gwendolyn tried to look around, but apparently could see little through the poor connection. "Paymaster, my hospitaller has a few important questions for you, if you would be so kind." A female hospitaller, wearing the usual black and silver uniform of a Samaritan, pushed her way into the holocone. She, like the captain, was a solid-looking lady with blonde hair twisted into a number of long, sinuous braids decorated with beads. Her silver helmet, winged in the usual fashion, sat askew on her head. "Paymaster Stenstrom, well met. I am Morgan Jeterix of the Ephesians, Lady of Thompson, Brand Order of the Hospitallers. Might I say I had the honor of serving with your father for a time. Truly a goodly and honorable man. It has been my goal to make your acquaintance for some time now." "Thank you, ma'am," Stenstrom replied. Lieutenant Gwendolyn appeared impatient. "Please get on with it, Morgan," she said. Morgan shot her a look. "I wish to ask you a few questions, as without proper life support, you can quickly become addled with brain asphyxia and not even know it. I want to assess your current medical situation." "Very well. Please ask your questions," Stenstrom said. "What year were you born, please, sir?" 03192 AX, Stenstrom quickly replied. "And what is your birth date?" "December 17th. Morgan noted a few things down in the pad. "Are you feeling out of sorts at all, sir?" "No, not really." "Are you—" Gwendolyn pushed her way back into the screen. "Thank you, Morgan." As you can see, the Paymaster appears for the moment to be fine. She turned to him. "I am relieved to see that you are unharmed. I also see that you managed to get your half-scuttled ship out of its terminal orbit and park at a standard altitude for dry docking. An impressive accomplishment considering the state of your vessel. Please be advised that we shall rendezvous with you in approximately 7 hours. At that time, myself and my team shall board the ship and safe tow it to dry dock 186 to begin its repairs." "The repairs that I'm paying for, yes?" "I am not aware of such things, sir. To continue, at that time, we shall rescue you and your people and take you back down to fleet." Stenstrom smiled. "Good lieutenant," he said. "That's captain, if you please," she corrected. "I am the commander of this vessel, and I insist proper protocol be observed." "Yes, thank you. As you can see, Captain, We here on the Seeker are in weather shape and have no need of rescue. We are a warbird on the ring and have been recently appointed to the chair of the Seeker and have been tasked to go at speed to Baz on the orders of Admiral Derleth. I intend to fulfill that mission. Lieutenant Gwendolyn sighed. She put her hand on the hilt of her sword. Paymaster, I appreciate your position and am sorry that my presence aboard the ship shall cause your appointment to be rendered void. However, your safety and that of those with you is currently my responsibility, and I intend to deliver you and anybody else present on the Seeker to the shore immediately. Am I clear, sir? I hate to be blunt and the bearer of bad news, but there it is. If it is any consolation to you, sir, I should be glad to make a recommendation to the Admiralty regarding your inventiveness and tenacity into this matter. It is certainly to be commended. Thank you, Stenstrom said. The Admiralty certainly has a keen eye for such things, do they not? And please allow me to be clear to you as well, Captain. I have a mission to accomplish for my chair's sake, and I shall carry it out. You needn't hurry to our position, as we shall not be here upon your arrival. Gwendolyn approached the holocone, filling it up. It was hard to judge how big she was, but she looked to be rather tall and solidly built. Stenstrom mused that if she smiled, she would probably be very attractive, but her face was set in a stern frown. According to my logs, Paymaster, you have 2 unauthorized persons aboard your vessel. She snapped her fingers, and someone handed her a report. She looked at it. Where is Fleet Adjutant Lieutenant Josephus, Lord of Aram? Here, ma'am, Aram piped from behind the helm. Gwendolyn glanced at him. I know you, sir, do I not? Yes, of course, I've seen you in Admiral Derleth's office. Well met. Sir, you are considered absent from your duties, which is a serious charge. The Admiral is very concerned about you and is graciously willing to forget this matter, but I must have you to his side with all speed. Lord Aram is no longer in the employ of Admiral Derleth, and he is no longer an adjutant, Stenstrom said. I have duly appropriated him, as is my right as ship's commander. Lord Aram is now my master helmsman. What? Captain Gwendolyn said, shocked. I have appointed Lord Aram as my master helmsman. Paymaster, he is an adjutant, an assistant, a helper, and if my memory is clear, he can barely see 2 feet in front of his face. Lord Aram, I do not mean to belittle you, but then why do so? Stenstrom said, jumping in. He had the skill and the raw nerve to fly me in a suborbital onto a dead ship in space. You claim he can't see? Perhaps it is you and everybody else at the fleet who cannot see, for there was an unnoticed treasure in your midst the whole time, and I have stolen him away and given him his due at long last. Gwendolyn sighed. I am not certain what relevance this has in this conversation, Paymaster. Lord Aram shall be returned to the Admiral's office at once. Yes, where he may get a badly sore elbow polishing the Admiral's silver. By hook or crook, Captain, I shall have a crew, Stenstrom replied. Admiral Derleth has made no other choice possible. This man was wasted in that office and routinely humiliated by an arrogant admiral. Here, he is a master helmsman and greatly appreciated. Gwendolyn shot him an increasingly dirty look. I see. And where is Private Tara de la Anderson of the 110th Marines? Tara stepped forward and nodded. That's me. Gwendolyn turned to her. You, Private, are officially AWOL from your barracks. I am compelled to inform you that I must take you into custody at once. Adjutant Josephus, will you please take Private Tara to the brig and await my arrival? Is that understood? The brig currently has no gravity, ma'am, Tara chirped. Then select suitable quarters and take her there. Once inside, she is not to emerge until I arrive. Shrugging, Aram began moving in Tara's direction. Stenstrom got a tad annoyed himself. Aram showed every sign of cracking and giving in to Lieutenant Gwendolyn. Aram was used to following orders without much question, and Stenstrom had to intervene. "Stand fast, Aram. Let's show a bit of style here, yes?" He turned back to Gwendolyn. "Perhaps you've cotton in your ears, Captain, or that tight bun you've imprisoned your hair in has restricted the blood flow to your brain," he said. "Lord Aram is under my command, not yours. Therefore, stop issuing him orders." Aram resumed his position behind the helm, dwarfed by it. He looked like he wished to be elsewhere. Gwendolyn's eyes flashed. And Stenstrom continued, "You will be happy to note that I have appointed Private Tara as my first officer, again, as is my right. The Seeker has a long tradition of Marines serving as first officer. Lieutenant Kylos of the 12th Marines and Lieutenant Verlin of the 53rd have served this ship proudly, and I wish to carry on said tradition. I'm sorry for the confusion. If Admiral Derleth had left me a ship not in pieces, I would have calmed down the required communication hours ago. Perhaps you could do it for me, since you appear to have a nice working scouting ship under your command." Gwendolyn was shocked. Private as first officer? Paymaster, such a thing is not done. It is now, and Private Tara shall serve me and this ship well." She shook her head. "Paymaster, I'm sorry. I am overriding your appointment. Adjutant Josephus, please take Private Tara into custody immediately." Again, Aram began moving from behind the helm. "Aram, stand fast and buckle up. Captain, you are not issuing me or my crew orders, and you've not but the temerity to attempt to do so." Gwendolyn became rather perturbed. "Paymaster, when I board your vessel and take command, you and I are going to have a very short but rather vigorous talk in the gym regarding seniority and proper etiquette. And I warn you, sir, I am a champion boxer." "I've no doubt. The heavyweight division, yes?" Stenstrom said. Gwendolyn's mouth dropped open in shock at the slap. Tara and Morgan on the screen laughed. Stenstrom stood and approached the holocone. He was standing nose to nose with Lieutenant Gwendolyn. "Captain, it appears we are both victims of circumstance here. There's no need for us to work against each other. Please, allow me to complete my mission, and then I shall gladly allow you to board the ship and complete yours." "I have my orders, sir, and you have yours. Please listen carefully. I order you to remain on station and await my arrival, where I and my team shall board the ship post-haste. At that time, I shall relieve you of your command. Take Private Tara into custody and return Adjutant Josephus to the fleet. Then I shall escort you to the gym, where I shall gladly relieve you of your teeth. Captain, I remind you that you are in command of a scouting ship. I am sitting on a main fleet warbird, such as it is, and therefore your orders are nullified. And by the by, should you choose to take a swing at me, be it known I shall swing back with the utmost vigor. Lady or not, girl or not, I shall put you on the floor. My orders come from Admiral Derleth, as do mine." Gwendolyn took her hat off and her dark brown hair spilled out. "You have 7 hours, Paymaster. If you are not where you are supposed to be when I come for you, then it is war between us, sir, and it'll be a war that you shall lose in earnest." "Very well, then. It's war. You have thrown down the gauntlet, and I am picking it back up and slapping your punch-riddled face with it. If only to cause you the maximum level of annoyance, I am going to Baz. Stenstrom out." Gwendolyn looked like she was about to explode when the screen went off. Aram shook his head. "Oh, that was way cool, Belle," Tara cried. "You really know how to tweak a person off. She looked really, really pissed." Tara gave him a shove. "Am I really your first officer?" "If you want it." Tara gave him a grand hug. Aram was skeptical. "Well, that was a fine show of bravado, Belle. But the fact remains we're stuck here in orbit. We've no drive engines and are dead in our tracks. Likewise, you're going to be finding yourself in quite a fistfight once Captain Gwendolyn boards the ship," he said. "Am I?" "Oh, yes. She's one of Admiral Derleth's favorites, his niece. I think. And yes, she was a fleet boxing champion in her weight class 4 years, ladies division. And no, it wasn't the heavyweight class either. She's also really good at wrestling and sambo, and for what it's worth, she has a fast right hook and a mean streak to match. So I'm told. What else? Well, that's about all I know. She was often in attendance in the Admiral's office. She was always quite nice to me, but then again, I never slapped her in the face right in front of her crew either. Oh, you're too kind, Aram. I'm certain she'll get over it. If you're gonna fight, I want to be there to watch, Tara said. Stenstrom walked to the back of the bridge. Tara, I'm not going to beat up a helpless woman. She didn't look all that helpless to me. I'll bet she can take you. Hell, I bet I can take you too. You never want to fight a girl from Baz. Stenstrom ignored her. So, if only to avoid an embarrassing session of fisticuffs in the gym, we have 7 hours not to be here. What are our options? How are we going to do this? Well, we can't use power from the grab packs, Belle, Tara said, still all mollied up. That won't break us out of orbit. We won't be able to generate the altitude or the velocity. We have gas compression engines, but no coils to run them, and they don't function in space anyways. We have no motive power, plain and simple. Stenstrom wrapped his chin in thought. Well, I was thinking, with the Seeker abandoned and mostly stripped, she's carrying much less weight than she normally would, and, therefore, the amount of thrust required to drive her will be greatly reduced. Am I correct? Well, sure. Still, we would need a 770 coil at least, Tara said, impressed by her own knowledge that she shouldn't have. Well, if memory serves, a 770 coil is pretty big. All I'm talking is enough thrust to get us away from Canaan on our way to Baz. They sat silent for a moment. A standard T-60 transport has a fair amount of thrust. If you have 5 or 6 of those clamped onto the hull, that would limp us out of orbit, I should think, Aram added. Tara suddenly seemed inspired. She went to the force sensing station and peered into the viewer. We have a slow tap into Fleetcom's database. Let me just fiddle about with this here for a sec. And there we go. What are you looking up? Stenstrom asked. I had a thought. Yes, look here, Dry Dock 275. I recall the clerks at the hangar talking about an old tax scout ship that's currently docked there for a refit. So I looked it up, and here it is, the Westminster, an old Bellerophon class scouting vessel. Go on, Tara. What are your thoughts? I'm thinking we upthrust out of this polar orbit and sync up with Dry Dock 275. I think if we reroute enough power, we'll just be able to reach dry dock altitude. And better yet, the Westminster will fit nicely into Ripcar Bay 5. We'll put her in there, clamp her down nice and snug, then we'll just drop containment and fire her engines. That should get us out of here in a hurry. Ripcar Bay 5, Aram said. That's a forward-facing bay. We'll be flying backwards. So, Tara replied. Stenstrom smiled, and I would imagine that there is not but a minimal crew up there on Dry Dock 275. What with the holiday and all? Aram shuffled his feet. Well, I don't like this, Belle. We're talking about stealing a fleet vessel. Oh, come on, Aram. I prefer the term commandeering. We're talking about commandeering a fleet vessel. The fleet is going to rain all over us, Aram replied. Are they? The admirals make the rules down there in Arminelos, but let them enforce them up here in space, right? The fleet captaincy, should they get wind of this ridiculous situation, is going to be pretty sore, and not at us, but at the Admiralty. I can drop names with the best of them. My father, Captain Davidge and more, Captain Davidge himself told me a fleet captain is expected to be bold and tenacious at all times, and that's exactly how we're conducting ourselves and carrying out our mission. Tara, how much altitude do we need? Dry Dock 275 is in the second shell of Zone B, about another 15,000 feet straight up. Good thing, too, if she were in the third or fourth shells, we wouldn't be able to generate the velocity to reach her. Aram skulked behind the wheel. Oh, we're gonna get in trouble. Look, we get into trouble, I'll buy our way out of it. Money talks, Aram, never forget that. I can buy bar and mouthpieces, I'll have the fleet's head spinning. Besides, we're going to bring the Westminster back nice and neat after we've delivered our bloody brandy to Baz. No harm done. So with that in mind, let's make ready to upthrust and do this. And with that, we conclude Part 1, Chapter 7, Lieutenant Gwendolyn. So we've met the pugnacious Lieutenant Gwendolyn at last. If you've read some of the other second series League of Elder books, you know Lieutenant Gwendolyn is a character there. I'm not going to go into much detail, but you know what happens eventually with Lieutenant Gwendolyn. She's a bit of a pistol, the lieutenant is. Not very personable, not very chatty, very by the book. Got a bad sort of temper. She can go off at a moment's notice. Her crew is quite terrified of her. They call her the grizzly bear. She's got the muscle at the fleet office because she is the niece of Admiral Derleth, that she can make life really unpleasant for the crewman who steps out of line. She can really put you in a crap situation should you annoy her, and she'll happily do it. She's not well liked by her crew. She's not a very friendly commander whatsoever. That's not her style. And she's pretty pugnacious to boot, as she just challenged Paymaster Stenstrom to a fist fight. It's not something most ladies and most Xenon ladies are renowned for being petite and demure, but Lieutenant Gwendolyn, who's from Xenon, is neither of those. She's big and she's pissed off. So we'll find out more about her as the story progresses, but she is en route and she's mad at Paymaster Stenstrom and she wants to knock his teeth out. Not a good first meeting with Lieutenant Gwendolyn, to be sure. So, in order to get the Seeker out of its current situation, they need an engine. And what happens to turn up or be available? An old tax scout ship, the Westminster, which should have plenty of thrust to get them moving, even though they'll be flying backwards, because the Ripcar Bay 5, which is the largest on the ship, is facing in the wrong direction. So they'll be flying by the stern, as it's known. So next chapter, Part 1, Chapter 8, the Westminster of all things. So we'll see how our intrepid trio manages to appropriate this crazy craft and get out of Dodge, as it were. Until then, this is Ren Presents Time. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.